Welcome to Read Your Comics. Today I'm looking at Cable 48. Thanks for joining me again today. Before we dive into today's book, I just want to say thanks to all the viewers' support. Every like and comment and subscription is appreciated. So if you're enjoying this positive comic content, please consider hitting the thumbs up button. Comments are always encouraged. And hey, if you haven't already, why not subscribe so you never miss a future video? I created this channel to entertain, inform what I can, and maybe even inspire you to read some comics. If you think that's a good message and other comic fans need that in their feeds, then the likes, shares, and subs tell the YouTube algorithm to put it in front of them. Now let's get on with today's video. You may be wondering, why am I covering this just random issue of Cable? Well, it's the artist. Jose Ladronn is a Mexican artist who has a flair for mostly Kirby, I would say, is his biggest influence you can see, but I often compare him, I say he has a dash of Jeff Darrow in him, and I've even heard Mobius a little bit. So you see it in the character designs, the Kirbiness, but in the finer details, you see some of those more European influences. James Robinson is the writer on Cable, and I guess he had been doing a couple issues before this that were part of the Zero Tolerance crossover, which I don't remember a whole lot about that from back in the day. I haven't gone back and reread it in many years. But this is the first one with Jose Ladronn taking over, and it's the start of a new storyline for Cable too. So again, I don't know when James Robinson took over, but it is nice that at the time Marvel was doing these handy fold-outs, because I did read through this just to kind of know what was going on with Cable at the time. Cable's not a character that I have particular love for. I generally only picked up his title during crossover events. I don't even think I was picking it up for the Zero Tolerance one, because at that point I was just crossovered out. But this cover in particular caught my eye when it came out. This came out in, I think it was 1997. And at the time I was actually working at a comic shop. And so there were shelf copies of this book. And I remember this coming out and just being like, wow, this guy looks a lot like Kirby. And I thought it would just be the cover, but no, it's the insides too. And James Robinson's a writer that I knew from Starman, and I enjoyed his work. So I remember reading these in the store that I worked at. I did not pick them up to have my own. I just recently kind of came across a big chunk of the run, and because I love Jose Ladronn, I went ahead and picked them up. I got a few gaps in it, but I do have these first couple of issues to get it going. So it starts out, and I guess it's just introducing this character for the first time. And again, she's in this like little character bio thing at the beginning. Her name is Irene Merryweather. And honestly, this explains everything about her that these first few pages build out. So I don't know if she had been a regular in the book for a few issues before under James Robinson, or if this was just, to me, this is like the introduction to her. So interesting panel here. This is the Hellfire Hunt Part 1, Dirty Secrets. So you see her sitting at a desk, totally alone, in a blacked out room, and she's talking about how when she's writing, she feels completely alone. But then you turn the page, and she's in a busy, bustling newsroom. And she doesn't work for the Daily Bugle. She aspires to work for the Daily Bugle. She works for what is essentially a tabloid. Just this opening shot, it's so interesting but mundane at the same time. I like how you've got the ceiling fan up here. And if you look at the finer details all across this page, I don't understand why there's trash in the floor, but you see paper airplanes coming in. I'm guessing these papers are from him. He's over there smoking and they're just standing around talking. This guy, who's a portly fella, as you can see, he's got a bunch of trash under his desk. And even all the way down to the details of the wires coming out of the computers, and then all the way down and plugging into the floor, even over here, like the filing cabinet. This is such a detailed picture, and that's where I can do more of the comparison to the Jeff Darrow as opposed to the Kirby. Definitely the figures, the bulkiness of the figures are Kirby, but that fine detail is more European influence. So a lot of this is just, she's establishing the people she works with. and the business she works in, the tabloid business, which she's kind of ashamed of. And as she looks out the building, she sees the Daily Bugle out the window, and that's where she would like to work for, a real newspaper, she says. And as I was reading this, I find that kind of funny, since the Daily Bugle's claim to fame is essentially being a Spider-Man tabloid and just bashing Spider-Man with misinformation all the time. You had Robbie Robinson over there who tried to direct it into a more ethical news organization than what J. Jonah Jameson was doing. So I did find that kind of funny. But at the same time, the Bugle is kind of the newspaper of the Marvel Universe, right? It's the one that people point to, like, I saw it in the Bugle. It was in the Bugle. So she gets called into the boss's office to look into Sebastian Shaw, we know him from the Hellfire Club. He's not a new character or anything. And he's got this redheaded woman on his side, and the boss wants some kind of scandal or salacious story to write about this redheaded woman. And they don't know who she is. It's like she doesn't even exist. So he puts this Irene Merryweather, on the case to try to find it. And keep in mind, he's not looking for some kind of breaking exclusive story. He wants a sex scandal. That's what he's looking for, because it's a tabloid. I mean, I love the face here too. A lot more noodling marks here than what you would see on like a Kirby thing. Little thinner lines. You see those Kirby squiggles, but they're thinner. And a lot more of them. Like, look at that hand. Maybe a little self-indulgent. I can't think of something that I know Ladronn did before this run. He's done a bunch of stuff since then, but this was my first exposure to him, and I don't know that he did anything, at least in American comics. So is this pretty early in his comics career? And how much of this is... I mean, he takes a little bit of this noodling away as his style develops, but he also works with much more intense colorists later on as well. She's just going around to all her contacts that she knows, asking questions about the Hellfire Club, not really getting anywhere, except for this one guy who seems to know or overhear something about a something Pierce, which is Donald Pierce, who was also with the Hellfire Club and the Reavers, and he's been a staple of X-Men villainy for a while. I like that face, that mouth. It's so crazy looking. So she's still writing about it, and the boss says she's taking too much time, trying to get too deep into Sebastian Shaw. He's like, the redhead's who you need to know about. That one guy at the bar gives her another tip to come check something out, and she's going to see him in person, and he's been killed. Like, she comes into his apartment, and he's murdered. We're like more than a third of the way through this book so far. Have we seen the title character yet? No, we have not. So this kind of has like a very cinematic feel, though, like a journalist is getting too close to the story, and now they're starting to off the people close to him. So she runs back to the paper, and she wants to talk to the editor who used to work for the Bugle to be like, how should I handle this? I just walked in on a dead body from a news source, and he was shot dead. And so she goes there, and the whole office has been trashed. Her co-workers all killed, her boss killed, all these wires hanging from the ceiling. Again, that's where I see Jeff Darrow influence. European influences. Little manga influences here with the speed lines around the character. So he takes some of the best aspects of Kirby and matches it with the best aspects of other, creative influences over the more modern years. And then you got these Hellfire soldiers crashing in through the window. There she is, Merryweather, get her. She manages to see the elevator, and she manages just to get in. I like that panel there of them shooting the guns through. The elevator opens back up and then closes. That's on the lower floor, I guess. And her taking off running. decent lettering. That's computer lettering over the panel, though. She gets in her car to speed away, and you see him flying behind her on these air cycles. Very Kirby looking air cycles again. It's the broad shoulders. And like you can almost see like circles. And the hands, of course. That's an awkward position to be. I mean, they're not just like kind of bent legged, they're squatting on it. And here's like the bulk of our action for this issue. Blows up her car. Somehow she survives. She's crawling out of the wreckage, and they're going to finish her off. When all of a sudden, here comes Cable. Finally, we're at the end of the issue, and we're finally seeing the title character for the first time. Pretty good description of her perspective of how he's coming in, like a wraith. And the way that he moves and stuff. I always think of Cable as slow and lumbering, probably because of the way he was designed with like the huge shoulder pads and stuff. So he comes in and he just starts taking out these Hellfire guards. And, you know, I didn't mention it before, but I love seeing these guys. These were kind of like a lost thing in this era of X-Men of the late 90s. You didn't see the Hellfire Club guards that often, or soldiers, whatever you want to call them. The air cycles look a lot cooler from this angle. They don't look so much like they're like they're totally squatting down. They're kind of leaning forward on them. Cable gives chase. That is a very Kirby-like panel. And you just got some like pretty decent action here too. I like the motion lines and stuff, the way they're swirling around. Makes you think that when Cable jumped off of his, that's a cool dynamic shot. And it's already starting to spin, and then it's like when he jumps on it, maybe they were like spinning around before he caused it to crash. So, you know, not a lot of backgrounds, not really necessary there though. Finally, we're going to wrap up the issue with Cable meeting the Irene Merryweather character. She's going to be our grounded character for Cable, I guess, for the next little bit. I don't know if she sticks around for a long time or if she's just here for this Hellfire story, but she's definitely the human connection to all of this. And I do like the way Cable looks compared to the typical Liefeld design, which is like I said, Cable's never been a character I loved. But at least you got the big, huge, bulky shoulder pads off. I don't know why he still has these like handlebar things on. But he looks like he can move now. He's a lot more sleek looking. And that's the end. And he says, I know why the Hellfire Club is hunting me. What I need to know is why they are hunting you. And call me Cable. And I knew I was safe. Safe in his arms. So, and that's the end of this issue. It's a decent kickoff to the storyline. It's like they're trying to build mystery and suspense. It's kind of obnoxious that Cable really isn't in it until the last couple of pages, and he just shows up to save her. You know, the next issue I've already looked ahead, and it's much more Cable centric, with her still being kind of the narrator. This felt more like it's not a number one. So if this had been a number one, that would have been a terrible way to introduce the character. The fact that it's number 48, it was just coming off of a crossover time in X-Men. I thought it was a nice like palate cleanser to get you ready for this new direction of this extreme character. You know, Cable's always been kind of extreme. So James Robinson does a pretty good job of giving you the grounded journalist, setting up the mystery with the Hellfire Club, and of course Jose Ladronn bringing his Kirby-tastic best. So I look forward to continuing on in this run. I may or may not do it for the channel. If you want to see more of these, then definitely make a comment. Say, yeah, keep doing it on the channel. I have 49. I don't have 50. I think I have 51, and I'm only missing about like 4 issues of the whole run. So, if you want to see more, let me know. I'm already looking for them anyway. So that's all I got. Cable 48. Until next time, read your comics.